alaikum to all the participants who joined us and to Dr. Chusnul for our speaker for today's session. I am Palbasha Nawaz, and on behalf of Center for Global and Strategic Studies and Embassy of Indonesia, I would like to welcome you all to this online internship program, that is the Contemporary Dynamics of Indonesia. The theme of today's session, that is the second session, is Indonesian Politics, a Journey to Democracy. And for our today's session, we have Dr. Chusnul Mariyah. She is from Political Science Faculty of University of Indonesia. Welcome, Dr. Chusnul, to our today's session, and I would like to hand over the session to you now.
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I started with Indonesia. It's a big country, you know, with a 65 million population, and Indonesia is the most populous Muslim country in the world. But Indonesia is not Islamic country between quote, because we don't use directly Islam as a state ideology in our politics. But Indonesia is the Muslim community, what I call it like that. So political Islam is also the picture in our political struggle, in our political issues in Indonesia very, very strongly on that issue. If anyone remember, that's very famous, we call it 411 and 212. So this is 4th of November and 2nd of December. There is some big demonstration. Millions of people, you know, came to, this is only just in front of the presidential palace, you know. For the 411, president didn't come, but for 2nd of December, president came with some minister and from the military rank, you know, the General Gatot also was there. So there is some issues now that, like the resurgence of Islamic forces, not the Islamic political parties, but in terms of the Islamic, the people now become using the Islam as identity, political identity. Even though the discussion, the debate in the media or in many of the scholars usually talking about, oh, you are not allowed using religion as a political identity. So we have to fight in terms of the discourse, whether Islam, we can use Islam as a political identity or not. But my point of view, religious identity is look like preferential of any others, of any citizens in the world, you know, religion, ethnic, what else, like gender, something like that. So this is a very famous, huge demonstration, but there is no any single garbage, you know, after they finish the demonstration. Very clean, everybody, not only just the Muslim people, but also non-Muslim. I met them, you know, young people, non-Muslim, ethnic Chinese, you know, bring the garbage, plastic bag, something like that, and together with a demonstration that they just pick up the garbage. So in one sense, people to people relation, it's very, very harmony actually. But then the elite, of course, they have a different ideas in terms of why some of the elite, they don't like that Indonesian people or people use Islam as an identity. So there is some of discourse fighting about the issues. I like the picture because I like the arrow picture. It's very beautiful and it's very powerful in terms of it. What I call this event is, I call it like civil Islam. So it's not, you know, people usually just using this as what I call like what is called like discrimination or Islam as a peripheral, you know, how to bring this issue into the center. Why I started from this issue, because in 1998, when we have a changing the politics in 1998, I was there also with a student movement, with a women movement at that moment. So we were having a new era that's we are building a democracy. What is democracy is about? So I always use Leon Slipset and Larry Diamond ideas of democracy. Democracy is just a moment. Where is it? Far away. First of all, in democracy, we have to have excluding, there is competition. In the competition, it's not allowed using the power, excluding the use of force. That we call it the democracy, excluding the use of force. So meaning that like the police, the military, and the intelligence not allowed to play with a political game, or supporting one of the candidate in the presidential election on the legislative election. So the first criteria is competition. In the competition, excluding the use of force. The second thing is the full participation. There is no any citizen that allowed to marginalize in the politics, in the democracy. Usually I use this one for women's political participation. I could call myself, I was the first women actually in Indonesia were fighting also for the quota, 30% of candidates in the election. I was a women NGOs activist, and also I was one of the government expert team to drafting the legislation on political parties election in Indonesia in 2000 for the election of 2004, and I was myself as election commissioners at that moment. So it is a very interesting because since 1999 and 2004, especially after the quota, the increasing of women role, women in a legislative institution like in national parliaments, increasing very significantly. During the Suharto era, this 71 until 1997, only like 11% women in the parliaments. But now we have 21% of women in parliament. Of course, there is not yet in terms of the 30%, but at least there is some increase in that numbers of presence. But there is some very significant increase of women participation in local parliament, in provincial level, and in the local government level. In provincial level, now average is 12%, 16%. 12% is local government. During the Suharto era, in provincial level, only 5% women in the parliaments, average 5%. But in local parliaments, only 1% average women in local parliament. So there is some of what is called like the politics is not only very masculine ideas, but now women also involved in the debate, in the parliaments, in the media. If we are having like a political opinion in media, you use this. Now we have so many women also give some opinion. The third thing is civil and political liberties. The increasing of civil society institution like NGOs, flourishing of NGOs, and then pairs, the independent of pairs, and also what is called like the independent, the new that people not allowed to have like setting up the organization. So civil and political liberties is a very flourishing also after 1998, even though there is some up and down in terms of what's going on with politics today, because I think everyone can read from different resources. But of course, there is some of in one sense, we have now they have problem like the ulama HRS Habib Rizik Sihab now like in trial, but at the same time because of the issues of COVID, we have like a lockdown and so on and so forth, and Habib Rizik have what is called like Walimatul Urus. He had his daughter actually, but yesterday, only just a few days ago, president also attending, president and minister for defense and the leaders of Majelis Permusyawaratan Rakyat went to the celebrities wedding, the big celebrities wedding. So there is some of issues that coming and go in terms of politics in Indonesia today, because I think everybody can read from different part of the resources from the news. Going back again to the Indonesia, construction of Indonesian politics, we started with, usually people think that 350 years Indonesia was colonialized by VOC, and then VOC, and then the Dutch government. But actually, we always teaching our student that 350 years Indonesia have been colonized by Dutch. But for me, I think it's not 350 years. Why? Because at that moment, Indonesia actually declared independent in 17 August 1945. So meaning that Indonesia was born in 17 August of 1945. And who's actually in Indonesia at that moment? Like 100 of Islamic Sultanate, 100 of Islamic kingdom from Aceh until Papua. So this is the debate today that who actually Indonesia before independence. Then now we have like a big government, but before it's like a small kingdom from Aceh until Tidore. Tidore here until Papua. So Papua is part of the Tidore kingdom at that moment. One of my PhD student who just finished, he wrote about the kingdom of Tidore, the politics now, because the fighting between huge conflict among land by crown of Tidore kingdom and by the government. It's very, very interesting to see all this area that actually before is like a Islamic kingdom, mostly, except 1-2 in Bali with Hindu, or in some part of Indonesian, but mostly it's like Islamic kingdom. So this is also what I call it political sovereignty. But when actually we started in terms of cultural sovereignty was like in 28th of October 1928, when all these young people got together and pledged, we call it Sumpah Pemuda, youth pledge, one state, one nation, and one language, Indonesia. So if we are talking about nation Indonesia, actually this is the nation, the construction of the nation. It's not like the nation like what is called like ethno-nationalism, like in Europe, when we are talking about Germany, Dutch, France, Spanish. No, but we are talking about Indonesia. That's Indonesia. Part of them like Acehnese, Malay Delhi, Malay Riau, Malay, all the Sumatran, and then West Java, Banten, Central Java, East Java, and then Celebes, Kalimantan, and Malukas, and so on and so forth, something like that. So, but we use national language, lingua franca. Indonesia is actually Indonesian languages came from Malay, not the majority of the ethnic in Indonesia like a Javanese. Why? Because the Javanese language, I'm from Javanese. I'm from East Java, close to Surabaya. So in Javanese language, we have like a 3 level of language. If you speak to your parents, different with you speak to your close friend, and if you speak to the lower age, so there's different 3 level of language. So it's very feudal, I call it. But Indonesia is more, Indonesian language is more like more democratic, more what is called like yeah, democratic. If you're talking, because similar, you are talking to the elders or the youngers, you can just use Indonesian language. Is it a similar with the Malay language? Quite similar, but different. Why? Because different 200 years. Malay language also from Malay, from yeah, Malay, like Indonesian from Malay, but not Malay Malaysia, but Malay from Sumatra, Sumatra and Riau, and this area. Yeah. Why this different? Because Malaysia was colonized by British, Indonesia by Dutch. So there is so many English in Malay Malaysian rather than in Indonesia. In so many Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, Arabic, and so on and so forth. So this is a very interesting to see, you know, the sovereignty of Indonesia, cultural sovereignty, and then is a very interesting because many of the male usually like leaders, male leaders always using, you know, if you're talking about founding fathers of Indonesia, I said, come on, there is a 50% of the Indonesian people are women. Do you think there is no participation of women during the fighting to get to what is called like fighting to get the independent? We have 22nd of December 1928. We have a women congress. It's very interesting because many of the women activists is also demanded to have independence and like the same, call it the mill. And in PPUPK, this is like an organization that for the what is called like but you know, persiapan kemerdekaan. So like we have a group of the tokoh, you know, it's like a group of the leaders of Indonesian people who set up about the, you know, constitution, discuss about constitution, discuss about ideology and so on and so forth. 62 members at that moment. There were 2 women. One of them become Maria Ulfa, become minister after the Indonesian got independent. So there is a woman, but no one mentioned about the what I call it what is called like founding fathers. Usually I said founding fathers and mothers, you know, don't forget about mothers at that moment, something like that. Or just using founders. Don't only just a very sexist symptom of this one. And then the whole of the history of Indonesian politics, you can read it from Heartfeed and so many Indonesian from Australia or from group. But I think I have to go back again because the journey of democracy from 30 years under authoritarian rule of Suharto, at that moment, you know, after 66 changing of politics, yeah, Sukarno became a president, and the first era after the president, after the independence, we have a parliamentary system in our democracy, and then Sukarno, we have like a constituante, you know, institution who would like to set up like the discussion is more like constitutional convention, like that. But Sukarno like decided to have a decree, presidential decree in 1959, and then Sukarno took into power, and then we have like 3 forces: communism, military, and Sukarno at that moment. So for 69 until 65, and then we have a changing also the government in 1966 with Suharto into power. It took like 5 years until 71 we have election. So there's a difference, you know. During the Habibie, the changing in 1998, only just 500 days, Habibie set up an election to get the democracy. So at that moment, like 5 years, and then during the Habibie, only just 500 days. So this is also different. During Suharto era, we have like a development. If you would like to read references like Hupfield, he mentioned about developmentalist repressive regime. Yes, there is some regime, repressive in terms of politics. We only have like three political parties, at that moment, government party, the ruling party, but also the government party, and then Muslim party, and then secular and non-Muslim party, PDI, Partai Demokrasi Indonesia, and then Partai Persatuan Pembangunan, that's Islamic Muslim political party fusion into that party, and then Golkar is the government party, the ruling party, but actually the government party. So until 1997, so the political openness, glasnost and perestroika contribute to the political openness also in Indonesia. So like if you read Huntington, the third wave of democratization, so Indonesia also have that in 1998. So like if you read South Africa in 1994, then Indonesia is 1998. So in different part of the world also the changing of this one. And the Middle East is just have like 10 years ago with Middle East Arab, like a spring, like what happened in Libya and Tunis, Libya and in Egypt at that moment. So Indonesia is in 1998. What's actually the student movement, if you are talking about Indonesia? This very famous 1998 when the yellow is my student, they are my student, University of Indonesia, and also women at that moment. I still remember at 3 o'clock in the morning, I just arrived at home. My home actually at that moment is only just what is called like 3 step stone to Suharto. So I was living, between all this military, like urban guerrilla in Menteng, in around that one. 3 o'clock in the morning, I just arrived home and somebody rang me up. They said, we need like 65,000 of breakfast, packet of breakfast. I said, what? I said like, how much that we have now? I said like that, 35,000. That's enough. Why? Because I believe that all this my student there, the male, have like a girlfriend, and the girlfriend have the boyfriend there, and they can eat, one pack of food together. So I think it's very, very interesting. So women's, this is the different. Usually the student, I ask my student, so what's the difference if you struggle with women activists with all these male activists? They said women activists were thinking about, how about your breakfast, how about your lunch, how about your dinner, something like that. We always prepare for the student who are in a parliaments in 1998. Alhamdulillah, only just a few weeks or something like that. So we just stop after Suharto step aside, Then we are discussing about, the discussion is about whether we are talking about what I got like democracy on the road, like state democratization or constitutional democratization. So I had debate with my student in Salemba. Salemba is one of the central universities of Indonesia, and it's a very historical, because during Sukarno era, the military came to power. During Suharto, military came to campus. I was like a young student when in 1982, something like that. The military came to power, and we are just, like tried to hide from from our table at that moment. It's very interesting to see what's happened during that era. But that's our experience. And then in 1998, so I said to my student that the lecturer would like to go into the constitutional democracy. So we are pursuing, we are fighting to get direct presidential election at that moment, with the argument that there is no any single candidate of the president who can use atau who can have food buying with 182, 185 millions of voters. That's our argument at that moment, our reason. But actually, after like 3 or 4 times of election, I was wrong, I think, because the politics now, we have like a oligarch of the economy. We have the business society who can buy politics. So we have a problem on that issue at that moment too, because unjustice economy with neoliberalism, with liberalism policies, with like we are more Washington, like what I call it, Washington foreign policy administration, of Washington, something like that. That the model of American politics is very liberal, it's very market-based approach with money or business become very the central of the fighting or what is the election or something like that. So we are struggle now how to make, election is more free and fair. So if we are going back again to the issue of the democracy by election, because usually one of the indicators of democracy is the government. 2004, we are just like laying the foundation of the election conduct by first independent election commissioners. I was one of the 9 commissioners at that moment. So we have like all this very rigid, we learn from Australian Election Commission in terms of voting roll, because why Australia is one of the best voting roll data of the voters, because Australia is, I think Australia is like a compulsory voting. She use a compulsory voting. In Australia, everyone have to be, to go to the election, to go to elect, in Australia. And if you're not, then you can get fine, like $50 fine, something like that. So we have a problem on that issues. So we set up new database of Indonesian voters in 2003. So this is the first time Indonesia has a database including including women, women. So we have like a data with women and disabled and something like that. So database on that issue and conducted by election commissioners. So it's very interesting because when we ask the Department of Internal Affairs, they don't have it. They have it, but scattered around Indonesia. But what we would like to have is like, because at that moment we have like a 3-time election. First legislative election, and then first round of the direct presidential election. The first direct presidential election is 2004, conducted by when I was election commissioners at that moment. And we are just so proud because the Economist London wrote in the magazine, The Shining Democracy Indonesia Example, twice, become like news in the Economist London. And also we call it Islam and Democracy is Compatible. Who is that? This is the president of United States. Siapa ya namanya? Kok jadi lupa. Nah, so we got a lot of like appreciation from international, because at that moment, so many international observer and then, country member of parliaments, election commissioners, including from South Africa, something like that, that we are watched by international community, that whether Indonesia, the country with Muslim population, the biggest Muslim population in the world, they can conduct free and fair election, and we prove it. Do you think that there is no any pressure from international community? There were. I still remember I was with my chairperson, Professor Dr. Nazaruddin Samsudin, is also from our department Political Science, University of Indonesia, and presidents of European Union came and then said, oh, you cannot make all this election free. You have to do blah, 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 blah. And I said, excuse me, do you know my chairperson? He is a professor in political science. I have also PhD in political science. We know very well what democracy is about. Indonesia is a sovereign country. Our people who made decision. There's a lot of, UNDP, USAID, European Union. It's very funny because they give a lot of money to NGOs, to do all this socialization and so on and so forth. Then said, go. And then, we would like to have this NGO. Then, okay, you can do that, but don't ask election commission to be responsible if you give directly. After finish, they came to us that this NGOs choose by European Union didn't profile in terms of responsibility and the report and so on and so forth. I told you so, something like that, because I was a women activist, student activist during I was student, and also from the member of one of the biggest Muslim organization, Muhammadiyah. I was also in the national board of Muhammadiyah, so something like that, but quite understand about mapping of which NGOs were working really for the development of democracy in Indonesia, and just because of the project democracy. So one of the really for development of Indonesia, the other one is from project development from USAID, from European Union, or from OSAID, it's a lot of international funding working on that issue. So there is some of plus and minus in terms of the life of democracy and the process of democracy in Indonesia today. So going back again to the political change that I said is class not. But unfortunately, yes, we have a problem today in terms of who actually the dominant of economic, like the oligarchy of economic oligarchy today. We have a problem of that, with all this IMF, World Bank involved in our development, involved in make decision from our economic ministers and something like that. So the direction is more liberal, neoliberal, what I said, like market-based approach in terms of, they're just selling state-owned company, something like that. There's also that our challenge today. Why? Because of because 1% of the population own 49% of the wealth in this country. So this is also that what is injustice, or there is some gap between the rich and the poor, and also 72% of the land is also owned by dominated by 1% of the population. So there is a problem. But well, in the world, this 8 men have as much money as half of the world. So how the distribution of resources, we have a lack, we have a problem on that issue today. How we can change from liberal market-based approach into more talking about national sovereignty. For example, usually some of the decision makers prefer, to import rice, a garlic, something like that from foreign, rather than how to what is called to grow, garlic with our peasant, with our women. But it's many of them, the peasant, they're women, something like that. But there is some mafia in terms of a mafia, traders mafia, that's more they win into what is called to give a pressure to the politician. So something like that, where we have a problem. I think like in Malaysia, we have the same problem. In Philippines also have a problem, the same thing like that. So that's one of our challenge today in terms of the democracy. But the problem, the direction is more American model with liberalism, but we are struggling to have our own ideas of what democracy that is very uh, like localized, because if you're talking about democracy in a theory, actually there is so many variant of democracy. So we can like set up democracy with our own value, with more than 80% population are Muslim. We have a local wisdom. We have a lot of things that actually our power in terms of building democracy with Indonesian local wisdom, or how we use Indonesia as a conceptualize or theorize with a democracy, like a democracy, because democracy is not Al-Quran that you cannot change, but this is like a man-made, something like that. So we can have like a commitment, decision, consensus from our parliament, from our people, what kind of democracy that we are building at that moment. So we have also problem of unemployment, especially after, with the COVID-19. So we have a problem on that issue. We have a problem also that the influx of the Chinese employment to come to Indonesia. So there is some of issues that we have to fix it in terms of what's going on in 2024 in next 2 or 3 years for the next presidential election, because the issue is also the presidential election. This is the like there's 9 of the political parties that very like a colorful. Indonesia is with election with proportional representative. So for parliament, lower house, we have a proportional representative. And since Indonesia has the first election in 1955. So until now, I think there is like a nine political parties, significant in Indonesian politics. And you can see with color, yellow is Golkar, red is PDIP, this blue is Partai Demokrat, the dark blue is Nasdem, green, there is a P3, the Islamic parties, and then this PKB, Partai Kebangsaan is more the traditional Nahdlatul Ulama party, and the, where is the PAN? Oh, the dark blue, this is PAN. Nasdem, which one Nasdem? Oh, the blue, the light blue is Nasdem. So the party is very interesting. During the Suharto era, we only have 3 political parties because according to the legislation, January 1998, when we started to have the first election after reformation in 1998, so January 1999, we have 141 political parties. And in the first election in 1999, we have from 141, we have 48 political parties who are contested in the first election after reformation in 1998. What does it mean? Because Indonesia is multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-nation, I call it, because it's a sultanate or kingdom at that moment. So it's actually a nation. It's not only just Western Europe. They can call Dutch and Holland and France nation. We call it Aceh is also a nation, but then we call it ethnic after Indonesia, after we set up country Indonesian, like Republic of Indonesia. So there is some of issues that we have, even though we have parliamentary threshold, still 9 political parties who always significant numbers. In 1998, in 1999, in 2004, in 2014, in 2009, 14, 5 years, it's 5 years, we have election. And in 1999, so always is 9, 8, 9, 9 political parties. Even though the numbers of political parties who contested in the election different. So in 2014, like we had 42 or 44 political parties, and then 9 political parties were elected in parliament, who had a seat in parliament. In 2019, like 12, we have 9 parties also. In 2004, we had 24 political parties. We have like significant with the 9 political parties, so 9, 10, something like that. So it's quite interesting in terms of the pluralism of political parties who got significant numbers for the national parliament, but that's different in local parliament. For presidential election, that's different. There's red is PDIP and then Gerindra at that moment. This is 2009. The place of the red PDIP, coalition of PDIP, and the other one is the red is Joko Widodo now, the president, and then Prabowo is the Gerindra, the coalition by Gerindra and opposition, and then now become the Minister of Defense, and also the Vice President candidate become Minister. What's Minister? Pariwisata, ya. So if you're talking about democratic institution, there is some development, but not only just trias politica, the parliament, the president, direct presidency election, parliament, we have actually quite interesting if talking about parliament in Indonesia, because we are not only just by cameral parliaments, because we have 3 actually. One is House of Representative, the other one is DPD. This is look like senator, but it's not quite senator. And then we have like a Congress. This is session together between House of Representative and the Senator Indonesia. But we are not strong bicameral like in Australia. We have a very soft bicameral, like a senator really didn't have, they don't have like the function in terms of the real senator, like the Senate in Australia or in United States. Indonesia is, I think, it's look like British. We have House of Lord. I call it House of Lord. Why? Because many of the members of the senator here is like there is a wife of the Sultan, there is a prince, there is a son of the governor, there is son of the mayor, something like that. So I can, this look like the House of Lord, something like that. And constitutionally speaking, they don't have the function, the real function of the, they can have like a draft of the regional regulation law or something like that, drafting, not just drafting. So it's not look like the senator like in Australia when a senator twice they don't agree with the budget twice, then the prime minister report to the governor general. They said they just dismiss the government, so double division, and then they have a new election, because Australia has a non-fixed term. We have fixed term 5 years, like in United States 4 years, but at the same time the parliament is not only just House of Representatives who have a very powerful institution in terms of it. But yesterday I just came back from, I went to one of the political parties, because we have issues on issues on killing. This is kilometer, but you call it KM50. So we are just demanding that the political parties in parliament, have to have Komnas HAM. This is Human Rights Commission has to have really to to have more what is called like TPKF. They have to be this like fighting to get the justice in terms of the issues in Indonesia. So it's quite interesting to meet with the political parties, what they have. We are trying to talk to them, but finally they just to talk to us, just what's going on, because the composition of the political parties who won in the parliament exactly similar. It's more to support the executive rather than to be a control of the executive today. So there is some of issues on that issue because not dominated by them, the political party who supported the executive. So the auxiliary institution, we have so many auxiliary institutions. One of them is election commission, but election commission is under constitution. So it's not all auxiliary institution is under constitution, it's regulation, like commission of eradication corruption, something like that. So we have also issues couple of days ago when the big business, they got like free from the what is called like SP3, so they're free from the election commission, something like that. So we have a lot of problem in terms of how to make democracy work. So participation is very important. Student movement is very important because there is some tradition. But if today's student is only just focuses on in a class, sometime I just no. In 1998, I was with my friend, my colleague, said because they asked me, is it all right if they also involve in movement? Yeah, if you can get, if you can put down of the authoritarian regime, you can, all this class will get A. Because I said so in a class. So after Suharto step aside, I have to be consistent. So all class have, because 85% of the student was also in this parliament house. So I said, okay, you can all this class have A. I don't know what happened at that moment with my friend, and my friend live in Norway. So usually just, come on, we have all this history 22 years ago. Something like that because of his, usually they just criticize me. Oh, so yes, I said, I'm a engaged scholars. So you are, as an activist, it's very difficult only just in a class. You sometimes you have to be involved in to participate in a society, or you have the knowledge, so you can talk to the member of parliaments, or talk to the president, something like that. It's very important. Talk to the minister, and many of them they are my student. Some of governor, they are my students. So sometimes I just like, if there is some issues that is not right, it's not talking about justice, I just said, do you know that I think I never teach you like that, something like that. It's very, and some of them are ambassador, some of them my students ambassador. So this is a very interesting, if you are a lecturer, it's just to make, going back again to the constitution, what constitution said. So how do we have to build the democratization in our beloved country, something like that. So you can still criticize the government because this is part of the democracy, So it's very interesting to see what's going on. If you're going back again to, so this is in United States. If you're talking about political party identification, you see, I use this data. Look at this. Even in United States, if party identification, there is some religion type there. Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish. So religion is one of the very important category that this is human right, non-derogable, derogable in a right, in a covenant of civil and political right, UN covenant on civil and political rights. So this is a very important, and especially with Indonesia, when we are talking about our ideology, we call it, we don't like using Pancasila as ideology, but like the principle, 5 principle of Indonesian country, like principle of one God, ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, and then humanity, and then persatuan, like togetherness between Indonesia, and then musyawarah, then democracy actually, and social justice. So this is 5 principle in our constitution, in our opening of the constitution. So it's very important for us if there is some religion there, because in Islamic teaching there is no separation between state and church, not like in Protestantism there is some separation between state and church. So there is some of discourse on that issue today in terms of the how this religion in politics. So maybe we can learn from Pakistan experience about how we are not Islamic country, but we are Islamic society, something like that. And if we are talking about voting patterns, again, there is some religion issue. So actually, in political science, this is some of the category that is very easy and preferential in terms of the people choose based on political identification, party identification, based on gender, race, ethnicity, age, religion, education, resident, like from high class, the have and the have not, something like that. Also in Australia, if the have usually that's liberal party. If like the have not usually mostly Labour Party. So like true believers of Labour Party, true believers of Liberal Party, something like that. But Indonesia, if you're talking about this one is 2014, I don't have data in 2019, something like this. This is secular the party election 2014, but 2019 still similar like this. This Islamist, there is PPP that I call it Islamic Party during Suharto era. But we have a Justice Party, we have Amanah Party. Yesterday we met with Amanah Party. There is Golkar. This is the government party during Suharto, and this is Megawati, and this is Prabowo. So this is look like from Golkar Party. They just what is a change, like dispute between Nasdem, Hanura. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 parties actually came from Golkar Party. Yeah, some of the PDIP, but not all from Golkar Party. So it's quite interesting to see. If you compare with, this is 55 with very strong Islamic Party. This is more urban, and this is more rural in Java, and this is more urban out of Java, outer island. And then this one is also in Java, PNI, and then this is now become PNI, the Sukarnois, this is a PDIP now, and Megawati, and then communist. And then communist was because involved in 1965, so it's not allowed, PKI, communist is not allowed in Indonesia with the MPR decision at that moment. So there is some of changing from strong Java, outer Java, and then urban, rural, and then secular, religious, so something, because this is mostly the Western, usually Islamist versus nationalist. I call it secular nationalist with religious nationalist. So it's more fair in terms of to see what's party in Indonesia. Then we have see this one 2004 when I was the election commission. So we have something like that after only just 3 political parties, and we have now like 9 political parties who significant in parliament, something like that. So I would like to go to we have a problem if with the detail of election. Some of them that's very difficult. If you don't understand the whole mapping of the politics, because some of the intervention, if you're talking about, is there any intervention of government during the election through votes, something like that? Fair and effective administration of electoral process in necessary condition for free and fair election. What should we do? So it's very important, the position of election commission in Indonesia. If you cannot free and fair the election, so then people will be like a outcry, what should we do with all these things? So they have to go to the constitutional court, if there is dispute the result of the election. We have constitutional court, this look like in United States, but this noise become very powerful, constitutional court with 9 members in Indonesia. So usually I just criticize, how come that 575 members of parliaments who make decision and finally, vetoed by 9 members of the judge in constitutional court. So this is part of the institutional democracy, but at the same time, we are just worried about what I call it like tyranny minority or something like that we have. So I would like to give some of the issues today. In 1999, with 48 parties, 2004, 24 parties, and 2009, the 38 parties and 6 parties, local parties. So it's very interesting because we have 2 provinces who have special local legislation. Aceh with the Islamic Sharia law, so they have local parties different with other provinces because of special. So I would like to close with we have some issues of global politics, of course, with poros this Jakarta Beijing issues, because if we are talking about like the business people, this the what is it? Quick Yangi he is a Chinese. He used to be a minister, and he said that Chinese business people like dominated in Indonesian politics. He called it Sembilan Naga. Like Naga is the Chinese. What is Chinese apa itu Naga? And then also we have a problem of the American. So this is 2 center of Washington and Beijing involved in all this domestic politics in Indonesia. I think the same thing with Pakistan between India, United States, and also issues on Afghanistan, something like that. At the same time, we have a problem of the domestic affairs that we are still building. In my belief, that country who have not 100 years as a state, like Republic of Indonesia is 75 years old, we still have a problem of nation building, understanding about what should we do in terms of to defend our sovereignty as a Indonesian country, as Indonesian people. So sovereignty become very important in our discussion. Economic sovereignty, economic territorial sovereignty, and also not only just territorial, it's not only just land, but we have the biggest sea, like a country with a lot of, we have a quite big with water territory, something like that. There's a lot of issue with illegal fishing from Vietnam, from China, from different parts. So we have a lot of problem of that issue. Leadership is depend on the political parties at this moment, because if you would like to be a president in Indonesia, you have to be supported by 20% of seat in the parliament, meaning, and there is not any single party who have a 20% of seat in parliament. So they have to build coalition. So this is one issue. And recruitment become a presidential candidate, recruitment become a member of parliament. So we are still struggling on that issue. So that's why like every time they just invited lecturer or academician to talk to them about what should they do about like training them and something like that is very important. And because of election is very expensive, usually it's very difficult for people who has mind faculty like that, difficult to get that. Instead of them, we have like many business person who came into politics, become mayor, become governor, become president, vice president, something like that. So we have a problem of, what we call it in judicative issues. So it just follow what's going on. I hope that the government, don't involve in intervening of the court, something like that is very important. And civil and political liberty is one issue that I'm very concerned today, is the media, because media is look like the theory of Berlusconi and Taxinian. The politician own all this media, to give, more, if media is, it's supposed to be the fourth, pillar of democracy, but if owned by politician become very difficult. So that's why we are now having very strong and very colorful of social media. I have myself with my colleague, Ihsanuddin Nursi, if you would like to see, actually we would like to translate it into English so then everybody can listen. We have I See the Real Show. If you open, you check it in YouTube, you can follow our ideas. I See the Real Show. Ihsanuddin Nursi. The video is quite long, mostly, average is 1 hour. It's not look like, popular, but I think it's very important, especially this is for scholars who would like to understand what's going on and conceptualize with a theoretical base, politics, political economy, especially. So there is some issues that I would like to share. I hope that gives some ideas, in terms of, because it's like a 1 semester program of 1 semester course on politics, democracy and politics. And I hope that you can follow the YouTube, I See the Real Show. Oh, you are welcome. If you really would like to go to Indonesia and become what is called like student exchange, or you would like to research, and you can also come to my university, University of Indonesia, if already open, yeah. Until now, we still study through daring, yeah, offline, with online. But next semester, I think we already opened the university. So you're welcome if you would like to study more, in terms of to see what's going on and learn. And I hope also my student could come to Pakistan and we can have like exchange program between Pakistan and Indonesia. I think that gives you some ideas. If I make a mistake, I'm very sorry. Nasru minallah wa fathun qarib. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Palwasha.
Thank you, Dr. Chusnul. Thank you for a very comprehensive and very well explained presentation. And with that, we will be concluding our today's second session of this online internship program. At the end, I would especially like to thank Dr. Chusnul for taking out time and for joining us, for delivering such a wonderful lecture. Thank you all.